Let's get into it. Soul Not For Sale podcast. Coach Colin here. Mark Zuckerberg once again exposing the Biden-Harris administration. Listen up for all you people who wanted to see Kamala Harris in office. You would have got 4 more years of this type of behavior. Mark Zuckerberg talks a little bit about how the Biden-Harris administration was putting pressure on them, why they were putting pressure, what they wanted censored. And Mark Zuckerberg reveals in the second clip that I'm going to show you that he feels what they were doing was illegal. Then I'm going to show you a clip of Biden saying something that ties into what Mark Zuckerberg was talking about. And then I'm going to show you Trump and what he has planned in regards to free speech online. And then I'm going to show you an example of Rachel Maddow doing exactly what Trump was saying they were doing the entire time. Let's get into the Rogan clips first.
COVID was the other big one where that was also very tricky because, at the beginning, it was, it's like a legitimate public health crisis, in the beginning. And it's, even people who are like the most ardent First Amendment, defenders, the Supreme Court has this clear precedent that's like, all right, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. There are times when if there's an emergency, your ability to speak can temporarily be curtailed in order to get an emergency under control. So I was sympathetic to that at the beginning of COVID. It seemed like, okay, you have this virus. It seems like it's killing a lot of people. I don't know, we didn't know at the time how dangerous it was going to be. So at the beginning, it kind of seemed like, okay, we should give a little bit of deference to the government and the health authorities on how we should play this. But when it went from, 2 weeks to flatten the curve to, and like in the beginning, it was like, okay, there aren't enough masks. Masks aren't that important. To then it's like, oh no, you have to wear a mask. And, everything was shifting around. It just became very difficult to kind of follow. And this really hit the most extreme, I'd say, during the Biden administration when they were trying to roll out the vaccine program. And I'm generally like pretty pro rolling out vaccines. I think on balance, the vaccines are more positive than negative. But I think that while they're trying to push that program, they also tried to censor anyone who was basically arguing against it. And they pushed us super hard to take down things that were true, right? I mean, they basically pushed us and said, anything that says that vaccines might have side effects, you basically need to take down. And I was just like, well, we're not going to do that. Like, we're clearly not going to do that. I mean, that is kind of inarguably true.
Who is they? Who's telling you to take down things? And
it was
to talk about vaccine side effects.
It was people in the Biden administration. I think it was, I wasn't involved in those conversations directly, but I think it was.
How difficult is that to not be involved in those conversations directly? That's got to be strange too, right? Because you're running the company, but there's clearly you're moderating at scale that's beyond the imagination. The number of human beings you're moderating is insane. Like, what's a Facebook? How many people use it on a daily basis? Forget about how many overall. Like, how many people use it regularly?
It's 3.2 billion people use one of our services every day.
That's
it's wild.
More than a third of the planet. That's so crazy.
Yeah, and it's
almost half of Earth.
Well, on a monthly basis, it is probably half. Of it. But
so I want to say that though there's a lot of like hypercritical people that are conspiracy theorists and think that everybody's a part of some cabal to control them. I want you to understand that whether it's YouTube or all these, whatever place that you think is doing something that's awful, it's good that you speak because this is how things get changed and this is how people find out that people are upset about content moderation and censorship. But moderating at scale is insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
What we were talking the other day about the number of videos that go up every hour on YouTube, and it's bananas. It's bananas. It's like to try to get a human being that is reasonable, logical, and objective that's going to analyze every video. It's virtually impossible. It's not possible. So you got to use a bunch of tools. You got to get a bunch of things wrong.
Yeah.
And you have also people reporting things. And how much is that going to affect things? You could have mass reporting because you have bad actors. You have some corporation that decides we're going to attack this video because it's bad for us to get it taken down. Mm-hmm. There's so much going on. I want to put that in people's heads before we go on. Like, understand the kind of numbers that we're talking about here. Now understand you have the pandemic, and then you have the administration that's doing something where I think they crossed the line. where it gets really weird, where they're saying what you're saying. They were trying to get you to take down side effects, which is just crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, like you're saying, I mean, it's so complicated, this system, that I could spend every minute of all of my time doing this and not actually focused on building any of the things that we're trying to do. AI, glasses, like the future of social media, all that stuff. So, I get involved in this stuff, but in general, we have a policy team. There are people who I trust. They're the people who are kind of working on this on a day-to-day basis. And the interactions that I was just referring to, I mean, a lot of this is documented. I mean, because Jim Jordan and the House had this whole investigation and committee into the kind of government censorship around stuff like this. And we produced all these documents, and it's all in the public domain. I mean, basically, these people from the Biden administration would call up our team and like scream at them and curse. And it's like, these documents it's all kind of out there.
Oh, did you record any of those phone calls?
I don't think we were, but I think
I want to listen.
I mean, there are emails, the emails are published. It's all kind of out there. And they're like, and basically it just got to this point where we were like, no, we're not gonna take down things that are true. That's ridiculous. They wanted us to take down this meme of Leonardo DiCaprio looking at a TV talking about how 10 years from now or something, you're gonna see an ad that says, okay, if you took a vaccine, you're eligible for, for this kind of payment, like this sort of like class action lawsuit type meme. And they're like, no, you have to take that down. And we just said, no, we're not going to take down humor and satire. We're not going to take down things that are true. And then at some point, I guess, I don't know, to flip a bit. I mean, Biden, when he gave some statement at some point, I don't know if it was a press conference or to some journalists, where he basically was like, these guys are killing people. And I don't know, then like, all these different agencies and branches of government basically just like started investigating and coming after our company. It was brutal. It was brutal.
Wow. Media is like, they're just doing that because that's their job. They probably don't even know a lot about climate change. They probably don't really understand too much about what SpaceX is trying to accomplish, but they're just reporting on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of the people I've met there, I think, are good people.
I'm sure
it's just a tough format.
It's a terrible format. Yeah, and the problem is they get locked into that format and no one trusts them. And then they leave and they go, yeah, but you were just lying to us about this, that, and the other thing. And now I'm supposed to believe you're one of the good guys. You're one of the straight shooters now.
Yeah.
Well, getting back to the original point, this is why I think, it makes sense to me that the government didn't want you to succeed and to have the sort of unchecked power that they perceived social media to have. And I think one of the benefits that we have now of the Trump administration is that they have clearly felt the repercussions of a limited amount of free speech limitations, censorship, government overreach. If anybody saw it, look, I don't know what the actual impact of the Hunter Biden laptop story would have been. I don't know. But there's many people that think it probably amounted to millions of votes overall in the country of people that were on the fence, the people that weren't sure who they're going to vote for. If they found out the Hunter Biden laptop was real, they're like, oh, well, this is the family's fucking crazy. And they would have voted for Trump. That's possibly real. And if that's possibly real, that could be defined as election interference. And all that stuff scares the shit out of me. That kind of stuff scares the shit out of me when the government gets involved in what could be termed election interference, but through some weird loophole, it's legal. Whereas some
I don't think
interference,
that the pushing for social media companies to censor stuff was legal. I mean, it's like that's.
Right.
I mean, there's all this stuff about what, people talk about the First Amendment and okay, these tech platforms should offer free speech like the First Amendment. That I think is a philosophical principle. The First Amendment doesn't apply to companies in our content moderation. It's more of an American ethos about how we think that best dialogue is carried out. But the First Amendment does apply to the government. That's like the whole point, right? Is the government is not allowed to censor this stuff. So at some level, I do think that having people in the administration calling up the guys on our team and yelling at them and cursing and threatening repercussions if we don't take down things that are true is like, it's pretty bad.
It sounds illegal. I would love to hear it. I wish somebody recorded those conversations.
Well, I mean,
those would be great to listen to. Somebody could animate them, maybe Polytunes.
A lot of the material is public. I mean, Jim Jordan led this whole investigation in Congress. I mean, it was basically, I think about this.
All right, I let that clip run a little long. You guys know I don't look at my phone often, but I'm going to give you a little inners of what's going on. I made sure I needed these videos that you're seeing with Mark Zuckerberg to come out today. Something came out, okay? If you're one of the people watching this video on the Fire, it came out. It wasn't supposed to come out. I have to reschedule it because it's supposed to come out at a different time, and this video is supposed to come on in its place. So there was a big screw up there, and I just had to remove it. So I'm very sorry if you were watching it and you're like, where'd this episode go? Was not Lizard People. The only lizard person involved in this whole thing today is Mark Zuckerberg. My apologies. Thought the editor handled it, but it's all good. Let's get into what we were talking about now. You notice that little thing that Joe Rogan said? He's like, yeah, and now we're supposed to believe you were just lying about this or that. And now we're supposed to believe you're one of the good guys. And then there was that silence. I was like, was that like a jab at Mark Zuckerberg? He didn't pick up on it. I wonder if that was like a slight, because it applies directly to him. You said you were about free speech. You're actually censoring people. You were getting pressured, but you were maintaining you're about free speech. You didn't tell us until now, and now we're supposed to believe you're a straight shooter. I think that might apply to him. I might be reading into it a little bit, because I do that, but I don't know. You guys decide on that one. This right here is what Mark Zuckerberg was talking about in regards to Biden when things took a turn, when he decided to come out and say this.
What's your message to platforms like Facebook?
They're killing people. I mean, look, the only pandemic we have is among the unvaccinated. And they're killing people.
You know what? It's funny because I'm showing this to you on X, and everything I show you that's on X, I repost on my channel, but where's the community notes on this? No community notes, man. There should be community notes on this thing. It wasn't true. That was not true, what he said at all. It wasn't remotely true. Man, let's move on to Donald Trump, what he thinks about this whole thing, because Joe Rogan is right. Donald Trump, his administration, conservatives altogether have felt what it's like to be branded as conspiracy theorists and also to just be censored outright, most of the time without us even knowing.
If we don't have free speech, then we just don't have a free country. It's as simple as that. If this most fundamental right is allowed to perish, then the rest of our rights and liberties will topple, just like dominoes, one by one. They'll go down. That's why today I'm announcing my plan to shatter the left-wing censorship regime and to reclaim the right to free speech for all Americans. And reclaim is a very important word in this case because they've taken it away. In recent weeks, bombshell reports have confirmed that a sinister group of deep state bureaucrats, Silicon Valley tyrants, left-wing activists, and depraved corporate news media have been conspiring to manipulate and silence the American people. They have collaborated to suppress vital information on everything from elections to public health. The censorship cartel must be dismantled and destroyed, and it must happen immediately. And here's my plan. First, within hours of my inauguration, I will sign an executive order banning any federal department or agency from colluding with any organization, business, or person to censor, limit, categorize, or impede the lawful speech of American citizens. I will then ban federal money from being used to label domestic speech as mis- or disinformation. And I will begin the process of identifying and firing every federal bureaucrat who has engaged in domestic censorship, directly or indirectly, whether they are the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Health, Human Services, the FBI, the DOJ, no matter who they are. Second, I will order the Department of Justice to investigate all parties involved in the new online censorship regime, which is absolutely destructive and terrible, and to aggressively prosecute any and all crimes identified. These include possible violations of federal civil rights law, campaign finance laws, federal election law, securities law, and antitrust laws, the Hatch Act, and a host of other potential criminal, civil, regulatory, and constitutional offenses.
So there's a lot more to that video. I didn't want to play the whole thing through, but this is somebody who has felt the censorship and is railing against it. He also mentioned something called a digital, what did he call it? A digital constitution. So bringing your First Amendment to online platforms, which would be very interesting because Mark Zuckerberg did comment how, the First Amendment doesn't apply to companies. And that's the loophole that they always tend to use. The government themselves is not allowed to violate the Constitution, but if it doesn't apply to a company, they just put pressure to the company or align with that company, as Twitter was aligned with back in the day, and then they just do the bidding of these people and they get what they want. It's a very dangerous loophole, and everybody wants to see it stop. Here's some more of Trump talking about the censorship that he's trying to stop here.
Importantly, my administration,
of course, I got to slow it down for you. Don't want to hear Trump on double speed.
is also standing up for the free speech rights of all Americans, free speech rights. Look at social media. It's a thing called free speech rights. You look at Google, Facebook, Twitter, and other social media giants, and I've made it clear that we as a country cannot tolerate political censorship, blacklisting, and rigged search results. And it can go the other way also. We will not let large corporations silence conservative voices. And it can go the other way too someday. It can play little tricks with them. We're not going to let them control what we can and cannot see, read, and learn from. We can't do that. America is a free country, and we are going to stay always a free country. We're defending American values, and we're also defending our great American interests all over the world.
Man, I can't wait for this guy to take off. I've never felt that way about a president before, Sometimes I'm like, the 5D chess, they got me. But also, it's much better than the option that we had in front of us. And if he actually executes on all of these things in regards to free speech and online free speech, it's the exact opposite of what we had coming to us with the Restrict Act. And everybody's going to be in a much, much better place. I apologize for the face that you're seeing on the screen right now. I apologize. I should have gave some kind of warning. But this is an example of exactly what Donald Trump was talking about in that last clip.
I need to say that former President Trump has just started making public remarks, just as he did on the evening of his first arraignment on criminal charges. That was April, when he was booked on 34 felony counts brought by the state of New York. Now, tonight, after his arraignment on federal felony charges, he's speaking again, this time to an audience of his supporters that's gathered for a campaign fundraiser tonight at his golf club and summer home in New Jersey. We knew heading into this that he was planning to make these remarks. We are prepared for his pre-fundraiser remarks tonight to again be essentially a Trump campaign speech. Because of that, we do not intend to carry these remarks live. As we have said before in these circumstances, there is a cost to us as a news organization to knowingly broadcast untrue things. We are here to bring you the news. It hurts our ability to do that if we live broadcast what we fully expect in advance to be a litany of lies and false accusations, no matter who says them. And I do not say this with any glee. I hope it is clear that this is not a glib decision. We take our responsibilities seriously. We revisit decisions like this all the time. We make the best call that we can in real time, every time. But tonight, our call is this. We will monitor that speech by the newly indicted former president. We will not carry his remarks live. If he says anything newsworthy, we promise we will turn that right around and bring it back to you.
Yeah, so that is what I'm talking about. Those type of lies. She made that up. She said, we fully expect him to say a bunch of things that are untrue. Didn't wait to figure that out. Didn't let the American people see and then maybe call it out, debunk some things he said. None of that. They just decided, you know what? He's given a speech and you guys might hear it and that speech might influence you. So we're just not going to show it to you. That right there is exactly what is happening. Is Facebook Meta was happening. We'll see. Was happening on all social media platforms. They just expected this and decided that, and don't worry about it. If he says anything newsworthy, we'll let you know. You're just supposed to bring us the speech. That's it. That's all it's supposed to be. Just like you're just supposed to bring us a Kamala speech. Imagine, I would be just as upset if Fox was like, we're not showing you Kamala's speech. I'd be like, what are you talking about? Show us the speech. I want to hear what she has to say. I want to hear how poorly she says it. I want to see how drunk she is. Got to see how drunk she is, But it's interesting. So I'm hoping what Mark Zuckerberg said about social media platforms and the First Amendment not applying, I hope that it gets done away with what Trump plans to do. And I mean, let's go back even more into the conversation, Joe Rogan and Mark Zuckerberg. Look at how the Biden administration was actually treating this company. They were getting on the phone, apparently, according to Mark Zuckerberg, and I really don't see him having a reason to lie, screaming at people, swearing at people, telling them you're going to do this, you have to do this. That, and Mark Zuckerberg's right, that's not illegal. That is one entity that is not allowed to violate the First Amendment, not allowed to do it, and they're trying to get this social media platform to do it because a social media platform can. And that needs to stop. And really, we have to look at what President Trump is trying to do because this affects him negatively. Definitely. I even said, as Mark Zuckerberg was doing this, I'm like, oh, this is interesting that this is happening as Trump takes office because, the lack of fact checkers can actually have a negative impact on Trump. It can have a very negative impact. People can just talk about the good people on both sides hoax. They can talk about Russian collusion. They can talk about all sorts of things and not get corrected unless it's from people like you and me, right? But the social media platforms won't step in. Whereas before with Kamala Harris and Biden, they would constantly step in. It's a little unfair, but this is something that Trump's actually pushing himself. I'm so sorry to have that face on the screen that long, guys. I apologize. But again, what Trump's doing here is very selfless because he could just be like, let's not say anything. And now let's just get our hands into Facebook. Let's just sink our claws into Facebook the same way. They're already used to it. Let's just do it. I got Elon on my side. Let's just do it. Got Google over there. Let's just do it. Let's just keep on with the same thing. But Trump's actually trying to bust that whole thing wide open. And that's not something that benefits him because that happens for 4 years when Trump's in office. But it keeps going beyond that. So something that he did for America. And depending on how far it spans, the world over. Very selfless act. But anyways, guys, let me know what you think about what Mark Zuckerberg is actually blowing the whistle on pretty much in regards to the Biden-Harris administration, putting unnecessary pressure, screaming, swearing, and pretty much bullying Facebook, Meta, into censoring Americans. Let me know how you feel about that. Like, subscribe, turn on the notifications, helps the channel tremendously. And other than that, I'm out.